This is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Bob Lee? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing about this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the alleged crime, then offer my analysis. Bob Lee was born in St. Louis, Missouri on December 20, 1979. After going to college, he started a career in technology. He worked for several companies and functioned as a web developer and computer programmer. In 2010, Bob started working for a company called Square. He became the chief technology officer and was a key figure in developing the payment platform Cash App in 2013. He moved from St. Louis to San Francisco. In 2014, he left Square and invested in a number of technology startups. At some point, Bob Lee married. He and his wife had 2 children. In 2019, Bob separated from his wife. In 2021, Bob took a job as the chief product officer for MobileCoin, which is a cryptocurrency company. He moved to Miami, Florida in October 2022. In April 2023, Bob was visiting San Francisco for work. This brings me to the timeline of the crime. In San Francisco, California, on April 4, 2023, at 2:35 a.m., the police responded to a call at 365 Main Street and found 43-year-old Bob Lee lying in the street. He was unresponsive and bleeding uncontrollably. He had been stabbed 2 times in the chest and 1 time in the hip. Bob was transported to a hospital where he later died. Here's what the police found during the course of their investigation. Blood spatter was located on both sidewalks of the 400 block of Main Street. A 4-inch kitchen knife with blood on it was found inside a parking lot. The police interviewed a friend of Bob, who they referred to as Witness 1. The friend, Witness 1, said that on April 3, at about 3:30 p.m., this would be the day before the stabbing, he arrived at an apartment on Mission Street. There he met Bob Lee and a woman named Khazar Ilyasnia. Everybody there was drinking alcohol. The friend said that he believed the woman's marriage may have been in jeopardy. He was unsure if the woman was involved in a romantic relationship with Bob Lee. The friend and Bob left and traveled to Bob's hotel room, which was nearby. The friend overheard a phone conversation between Bob and a man named Nima Momeni, who was Khazar's brother. Nima was a consultant and system engineer who had worked for a number of technology companies over the years. The conversation was about picking up Khazar from the Mission Street apartment. It appeared as though Nima was asking a lot of questions related to whether or not his sister was using drugs or doing anything else inappropriate. Bob reassured Nima that nothing inappropriate had occurred. The friend and Bob went to the friend's apartment. The same day, at about 8:31 p.m., so about 5 hours later, a white late-model BMW Z4 pulled into the Millennium Tower luxury condominium building at 301 Mission Street. This is where Khazar lived. Nima exited this vehicle and made his way to the elevator. On April 4, at 12:30 a.m., so about 4 hours from when Nima arrived at the Millennium Tower, Bob left his friend's apartment and made his way to that same location. He was seen entering the Millennium Tower at 12:39 a.m. At 2:03 a.m., Bob and Nima entered an elevator in the building. They exited the building and entered Nima's BMW Z4. The men drove to the 400 block of Main Street and parked there for several minutes. The area was described as dark and secluded. At 2:25 a.m., the men exited the BMW and stood on the sidewalk. At 2:30 a.m., Nima suddenly moved toward Bob. Presumably, Nima used a kitchen knife to stab Bob 3 times. Nima stopped at a fence near where the police would later find the kitchen knife. He then entered his BMW and sped away from the scene. Bob was captured on video surveillance staggering northbound. desperately trying to flag down passing motorists. No one stopped to help him. At 2:34 a.m., 4 minutes after being stabbed, Bob called 911. He screamed at the operator, "Help, someone stabbed me." At 2:35 a.m., Bob can be seen on video stumbling toward the Portside apartment complex on Main Street. He has a phone in his right hand as he tries to activate the intercom with his left hand. Bob collapsed in front of the entryway. At 2:36 a.m., Bob Lee managed to pull himself up to his knees. He rocked back and forth and appeared to wave at someone. He placed his hand over his chest. The police were pretty sure that Nima Momeni was the killer, given that he was captured on camera stabbing Bob Lee. Nima was arrested on April 13 and booked into jail on suspicion of murder. On May 18, 2023, Nima Momeni pleaded not guilty. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Bob Lee was described as personable, friendly, intelligent, non-judgmental, and the type of person who never looked down on anyone. He had an incredible career and financial success, but it appears as though his life was spiraling downward in the time leading up to his death. Bob Lee was using a lot of drugs. When he was killed, he had ketamine, cocaine, alcohol, and other substances in his system. He spent a lot of time partying and was active on the swinger scene. People who knew Bob said he was pursuing the lifestyle. This is supposedly a term in the Bay Area which refers to people who seek open relationships, sexual freedom, and no judgment. Bob would attend parties that featured drug-fueled sex. He was surrounded by extremely attractive women all the time and was not afraid to brag about his wealth. He threw money around like confetti. One friend of Bob said that he was hanging out with cheaters and liars. It sounds like the friend may have had some bad experiences with that group. There is a sense that Bob was in over his head with these other people who sought the lifestyle. He may not have been as sophisticated as some of the other participants, like he was taking unnecessary risks and having a little bit too much fun. Allegedly, Bob and Kazar visited a suspected drug dealer's apartment not long before Bob was killed. According to the Wall Street Journal, Bob was in a casual sexual relationship with Kazar, and he had dated Nima's ex-girlfriend in 2020. Kazar is married to a well-known plastic surgeon. Item number 2. Many people who knew Nima were surprised that he would stab someone to death, despite his reputation for having a short temper. One acquaintance of Nima said he had a collection of firearms and knives. In 2004, Nima was charged with drunk driving. In 2011, Nima was arrested in Alameda County for selling a switchblade and driving with a suspended license. He accepted a plea bargain. The charge related to the knife was dismissed, and Nima pleaded no contest to driving with a suspended license. He was sentenced to 10 days in jail. Item number 3. Is Nima guilty of murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Nima is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Bob Lee was having a sexual relationship with Nima's sister Kazar. They had allegedly stopped at the residence of a known drug dealer not long before Bob was killed. Bob had a conversation with Nima, during which Nima did not seem too happy about the types of interactions Bob was having with his sister. At some point, Kazar sent a text message to Bob asking if he was okay because her brother came down hard on him. This is consistent with the idea that Nima was upset about Bob's relationship with his sister. Video surveillance captured Bob and Nima in the condominium building where Kazar lived. They left together, drove a short distance, and parked in a dark and secluded area. Nima can be seen on video suddenly moving toward Bob in a manner consistent with a knife attack. Bob was stabbed 3 times and later died of his injuries. After their encounter, Nima went to the area where the knife was later found, as if he dropped it there. He then fled from the scene in his vehicle. According to the prosecutor, Nima's DNA was found on the knife handle. The knife was an unusual brand. The same brand was found in Kazar's Millennium Tower condominium. This makes it seem like Nima grabbed the knife when he was there with the intent of killing Bob Lee. Now moving to the exculpatory factors. The video of the stabbing is not clear. Perhaps Bob threatened Nima or otherwise provoked the attack. Bob had a lot of drugs in his system. He could have been acting erratically. Nima's defense attorney suggested that the encounter between Nima and Bob represented a combination of an accident and self-defense. She claimed that there was a huge backstory to this case and said, quote, "Who would like to see their sister, who they are super protective of, potentially be drugged? Nobody. Any good brother would be upset about it," unquote. In an effort to explain the knife, the attorney said Nima was the one who threw the knife to make sure no one had access to it. When considering all the evidence, do I think that Nima Momeni is guilty of murder? Yes, I think he is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Of course, at the time making this video, he maintains the presumption of innocence. Here's what I think happened in this case. This is just a theory, my opinion. Bob Lee was lost in a world of drugs and sex. He was hedonistic and intended on continuing his behavior for a long time. This was not a problem financially, as he was wealthy. Bob was attracted to Kazar, and they were maintaining a sexual relationship. She was a willing participant in this activity. Kazar's brother, Nima, was not a member of the Bob Lee fan club. Bob had dated Nima's ex-girlfriend 3 years earlier, and this is something that didn't sit right with Nima. It only added to his disdain and distrust of Bob Lee. Nima was overprotective of his sister and saw Bob as a threat. To Nima, Bob was a dangerous, unstoppable, and attractive party boy with a seemingly unlimited supply of cash. He thought his sister was a victim of Bob's charm, as opposed to someone who was making her own decisions. Bob was corrupting Kazar, transforming her into someone like him. Nima was not going to let this happen. Nima, Bob, and Kazar met at Kazar's condominium, where Nima told Bob to leave his sister alone. Bob refused, so Nima suggested they go talk somewhere more private. Nima grabbed a knife from the kitchen to leave his stabbing options open. After arriving at a discreet location, the conversation still did not go Nima's way. Therefore, he murdered Bob. Nima felt justified in his behavior, but at some level he knew this was murder. He tried to escape responsibility by introducing the idea of accidental self-defense. This really doesn't make any sense. I guess Nima is going to argue that Bob pulled the knife and he managed to wrestle it away from him. He then accidentally stabbed Bob 3 times in self-defense. Maybe it was one of those fully automatic assault knives, and Nima's finger became stuck on the trigger. Worried that somehow Bob would continue to come after him despite being stabbed, Nima disposed of the knife in order to keep everyone safe. This reminds me of kids who get caught after stealing toys from one another. They often say something like, "I wasn't taking this toy, I was just keeping it safe." Nima somehow believes that his desire to protect his sister from allegedly being drugged, along with his accidental self-defense story, will be enough to beat the murder charge. In court, Nima disagreed with his attorney about a date for a preliminary hearing. He wanted the earliest date possible. It sounds like Nima just can't wait to get started in prison. In this effort, he has a lot of supporters. Those are my thoughts on the case of Bob Lee. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.